Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're sorry to keep you so late this evening. But as you know, we've been working diligently over the past few days to come to a resolution on a budget agreement. And I'm pleased to announce this evening that we have a budget agreement in concept, and we're going to be working on the details going forward, and we'll be starting to print bills this evening. The budget is very much a budget that is about creating jobs and cutting taxes. It is a two-year budget framework that looks at the main expenses and main revenues over a two-year period, which we think is a more intelligent way to actually plan a budget. Two main components. First component is a tax cut, business tax cut, economic growth tax cut. Business tax cut that will be $300 million when it's fully phased in. It will have a number of elements, including the phasing out of 18A. It will have reductions in small business taxes. It will have a youth employment tax credit. It will have a veteran employment tax credit designed to stimulate the economy and create jobs. There'll also be a middle-class tax cut. Middle class defined as families earning from $40,000 to $300,000. The tax cut will be $350 per family with children. The budget, next year's budget, the 14-15 budget, is a net tax cut to the people of the state of New York. We are cutting tax rates more than we're increasing it. The second component of the package is a minimum wage increase that'll be phased in over a period of 3 years at $8, $8.75, and $9 by the end of 2015. There will be an extension of the surcharge set to expire next year, which will raise $500 million. We also have an agreement with the TRS pension system and the controller on a pension stabilization plan, which will be offered to local governments to help reduce their pension costs, which, as you know, is a significant driver of their financial hardship. Total operating budget for the state of New York, $90 billion, which will be under a 2% increase. The all funds budget will be approximately $135 billion. That is without the Sandy aid and the Affordable Health Care aid, which were significant federal funds to the state this year, as you know. The agency operating budget will be about $24.8 billion, which will be flat funding for the agency operations. We have an aggressive economic development package of about $300 million for the ESDC economic development programs. Other issues that we've been talking about over the past several days, such as the stop and frisk marijuana rules, bath salt rules, synthetic marijuana, gun chapter agreements. We'll continue those conversations. They may or may not come to fruition, but those will be continuing. I do not plan to do any messages of necessity. The numbers that we are giving you are approximate. We're still dotting I's and crossing T's, so Mr. Megna wanted me to make sure I said that if the numbers change a little bit, you'll be understanding. We, as I mentioned, will be starting to print bills this evening. Votes could be as early as Saturday or Sunday. In any event, we plan and hope to make the April 1 deadline, and we are on track to do that, certainly, given the progress that we have been making. Before I turn it over to my colleagues, I want to thank the staff that has been working extraordinarily hard on this project. As I said, the two-year framework is more complicated than usual, and I can tell you that from my own experience, but they really have done a great job. And Rob Mahika and Jim Yates and John Emmerich, who was the first time we've gone through this with him, he was a welcome addition. Mr. Larry Schwartz, Secretary to the Governor, and Mr. Robert Megna, Budget Director Extraordinaire. They really did fantastic work, and we want to thank them. and we're not fully done yet, and there are a number of issues we're going to continue to talk to, but I'd like to thank my colleagues, and I'd like to applaud them for their spirit of collegiality and professionalism. We've made a lot of good progress, not just in this budget, but we've made a lot of good progress over the past 2 years and so. And hopefully this is going to be another budget that shows the people of the state of New York that government can work well and people can put aside their political differences and come together to do public service. We've done that for the first 2 years, and I believe this is a sign that says that's continuing. Having said that, let me turn it over to Senator Dean Skelos, who is head of the Senate coalition.
Thank you very much, Governor, and I too want to thank all the staff folks that are here that have really put in incredible hours. So we thank you, and by having a really early budget, you're going to be able to catch up on your sleep. And Bob, I know that you have to catch up on your sleep and get home to that new baby that you have. I want to thank my co-leader, Jeff Klein. We've worked very closely together. We've worked and understood issues that in the past may have separated us, but now we've had the opportunity to work together, and I think we're going to continue to do that. I want to thank the Speaker for his working so diligently and cooperatively with us, but it also takes a governor to bring things together, and he has brought together what I think is an outstanding budget. Third budget in a row that is not only going to be on time, is going to be early, way early, and that emphasizes job creation, tax cuts, and middle-income families that are struggling in New York State. Our responsibility is to respond to their needs and to make sure that our economy grows in the years to come, now and the years to come, and I do believe that this budget is a continuation of what we started 2 years ago, and we have to continue in this direction. So, Governor, I'm very proud to work with you. I'm very proud to call you our governor, and I think this is another excellent budget.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Skelos. We had a new member at the negotiating table today, changed the dynamic. As you know, it was normally just one member from the Senate, one member from the Assembly, so now it's a little different. We actually had more fun. It was, right, wouldn't you say? I guess that's a word. But he was, having him at the table, I think, was very helpful to the process and brought a different perspective. And with that, the co-leader of the Senate, Senator Jeffrey Klein.
Thank you, Governor. I want to thank the Governor once again for his extraordinary leadership throughout this process. And I was certainly very proud to be able to play a role in this budgetary process. You know, if you look at what's going on in Washington, I think what we did is, of course, in stark comparison. We hear words like fiscal cliff and sequester. Those are really code words for dysfunction. And here we are today, coming together with a budget which I think is probably the most family-friendly budget I've ever seen in my years in the state legislature. We kept our promise to increase the minimum wage, and I really want to thank Speaker Silver, who really kept that issue alive for 2 years and fought very, very hard to accomplish that. I also want to say that we also took our lead from President Obama. As you know, President Obama challenged Congress to raise the minimum wage in the next 3 years to $9. Well, unfortunately, we can't wait for Congress. So New York State is going to go do it now in this budget process. Something that we worked on in a very hard way in the RDC was a veterans tax credit, which is also going to be part of this budget. Presently in New York State, we have a veteran unemployment close to 13%. I think we can do better. I think we have to send a very clear message to the men and women who served our country that there will be a job waiting for them in New York when they come home. Part of this tax cut is going to be in the form of a $350 check to hardworking middle-class families around the state of New York, for daycare, groceries, making sure that they get a little extra money back in their pockets. But overall, I want to thank, again, the governor. I want to thank my co-leader, Senator Skelos, who really, I think, helped really bring all of us together sort of a very, very important perspective, because I think it's important to know that, yes, we want to help people put more money back in their pockets, but at the same time, we want to make sure that our small businesses around the state deserve a tax credit so they can create jobs and they can prosper. So again, I'm just very proud to be part of this process, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Klein. And last, but certainly not least, the man who needs no introduction, the Speaker of the Assembly, who I can say on a personal note, his history, his experience has been key to not just this budget, but the budget last year and the first year. These were extraordinarily difficult times. The deficit was very high. And the Speaker's experience and history in these matters, and having been through it before, I think was essential to the success, and I publicly want to thank him for his collegiality. And with that, Speaker Silver.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you very much. And let me begin by once again commending you, Governor, for giving us a solid template from which to work and for your willingness to consider some of the legislative priorities in coming to this final agreement. I also want to thank the co-leaders of the Senate, Senator Skelos and Senator Klein, for the ability to work together to produce this agreement. Yes, together we have reached a conceptual framework for a budget agreement which I'm confident we can formalize and finalize somewhere over the next 5 days. The framework addresses the Assembly's majority's core priorities. It makes the critical investment necessary to ensure a sound basic education for our children. It maintains our longstanding commitment to public health and to affordable housing. It honors the moral obligation we share to preserve the social safety net and to meet the pressing needs of our most vulnerable citizens. And this framework continues our effort to turn around the economy and to create jobs in every region of New York State. As you know, I and my Assembly majority colleagues have been focusing our efforts on reestablishing the ladder to the middle class that so many generations have climbed to achieve financial security. We're pleased that along with this agreement, tens of thousands of hardworking, minimum wage earning New Yorkers will be receiving a badly needed and much deserved raise on the 1st of next year. And come January 1st, 2016, we'll see the state's minimum wage rise to $9 an hour, which was the goal of the Assembly majority set out in our Raise the Wage legislation, which we passed a few weeks ago. In addition to addressing our core priorities in raising the minimum wage, we're pleased that this agreement includes tax actions that will provide needed relief to middle-class families and to small businesses and will promote job creation. We're extending the personal income tax surcharge for 3 years, establishing a family tax credit for qualifying families with a child or children between the ages of 4 and 19. And for this agreement will provide for small businesses also a tax credit if they hire students between the ages of 16 and 19 as seasonal workers. To encourage businesses to hire disadvantaged inner-city youth, those who have the hardest time finding jobs today, we're extending the job training tax credits available through the New York Youth Works program. Speaking for many members of the New York City Assembly delegation, we're pleased that we are, with this budget, formalizing an agreement to decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana, shielding those who are stopped and frisked from a life-altering drug charge. We have passed the first budget bill, the debt service bill, this afternoon. Some budget bills will be printed today, the rest tomorrow, and I expect passage to be completed by Sunday, the 24th. When I close, I'd like to thank the Chair of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, Assemblyman Denny Farrell, our Majority Leader, Assemblyman Joe Morelli, and all of our committee chairs, and most importantly as well, our staff, our counsel Jim Yates and Luann Ciccone, and Matt Howard, who so ably negotiated the various provisions of this budget. So thank you again, Governor. Thank you, my colleagues, and hopefully we will finalize this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to recognize Senator John DeFrancisco is here, and Senator Malcolm Smith, and Senator Diane Savino, and so what's his name, the fellow's name? Harvey, and Senator Harvey Libis, who's also with us today. I want to thank them very much for their collegiality. Questions?
Governor, two-part question. What became of the school aid that was docked from New York City for failing to get a teacher evaluation agreement, and also the $120 million in cuts to the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities?
Are you asking if New York City received the $240 million?
I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The city did not receive the $240 million. The anticipation in this budget is that the linkage of the evaluations to the state increase will continue.
How was the school aid divvied up? I know that there was some room within the table. Can you talk about the overall school aid number, and can you talk about how it's being divvied among regions of the state?
Bob, would you like to speak about that? Bob Magna, Budget Director.
I think they're still working out the details of the runs, which will come out, when the budget's finalized. But I think we're talking, the governor's budget had about an $890 million increase in school aid, and I think this budget will have right around within spitting distance $1 billion increase.
There is a cut to OPWDD. We're trying to minimize it as much as possible. But Bob, do you have any specifics on that?
Well, I think the governor's right. We're trying to minimize the cut as much as possible. The legislative folks have made it clear that they would like to minimize the cut, so we are concentrating on using whatever federal resources have become available over the past week to minimize that cut, as well as concentrating, as the governor has said, on reducing admin, reducing fraud, reducing kind of the overhead so that the actual monies provided to the providers for services are not reduced. But there'll be a smaller reduction. It's not exact.
You said the stop and frisk was being put aside and will be talked about, but there wasn't a deal. The speaker said that it was part of this deal. Is it in or is it not?
I didn't say it's part of the budget deal. I said it was being negotiated aside from the budget.
So there's no deal.
At the same time.
There is no deal on any of the related issues. This is where we're talking about the budget and the budget agreement. There are a number of other issues that we've been working on for weeks. We'll continue those. Stop and frisk is an issue that's obviously important to the speaker. It's important to me. Possibilities of other issues that may or may not be worked out. If they happen to work out, we can pass them along with the budget or at about the same time. If they don't, we'll continue to work on them for the rest of the session.
Does that include the changes to the SAFE Act that we discussed earlier today? Is that
There is no agreement on any changes to the SAFE Act. There's no agreement on stop and frisk. There's no agreement on the DREAM Act. There's no agreement on synthetic marijuana. No agreement on bath salts. These are all issues that are ongoing discussions.
What about Jacob funding? There was some talk that it had been shorted.
I'm sorry, Casey.
Jacob funding?
JCOPE funding?
We're still in the process of finalizing that part of the bill, but there's not going to be a reduction in funding year to year. There may be a small reduction in the increase in JCOPE, but they'll still get a significant increase.
Danny?
Was there any change in the regional economic development councils? We were talking about that earlier today. And also, I was a little confused about what you said about on minimum wage. Are you counting that as a tax cut?
Minimum wage, no. No, it's not, a minimum wage is not a tax cut. I said there were two components. We had a business tax cut, a middle-class family tax cut, and then the second component, if you will, was the minimum wage increase. Those are the main, tax cut and minimum wage increase are the main features. The Regional Economic Development Councils, there'll be a third round, 2 or 3. I think we're up to round 3. We'll have the Innovation Hotspots program, which is, takes the concept of the regional economic development and the transfer issue, and I think focuses on that directly.
Is there any legislative input on the program?
The legislature had input on the program last time. The input of the Senate and the Assembly, I think, is important. They know their local communities very well, and their ability to contribute to the process was established year 1. I think it got better in year 2, and I'm sure it's going to get better in year 3.
Members are subject to any restrictions or oversight by legislators?
No, sir.
Hey, Shelley, can you comment on the economic development possibility that was raising concerns about, you raised concerns earlier today about too much executive control over economic development funding?
I think you heard the governor say that in year 1, the legislature was involved. In year 2, we approved the legislature's involvement. And in year 3, we're working on improving even further the legislature's involvement.
So how would that work?
We're working out the details of it right now, as you speak.
What about changes to binding arbitration? Does that remain in the budget?
It does not remain, that is not in the budget. That law will expire in June, and I've told my colleagues that I don't intend to renew that law unless we've worked out the issues like binding arbitration, et cetera.
Governor, you had said earlier in the day that you were hoping to get, dealing with some of these other issues, get as much accomplished as you could. What happened? Why did you drop some of those other issues and just focus on the budget?
Well, nothing is dropped. We're going to still work on other issues. We might have an agreement with other issues. We want to get the budget itself underway. It's important that we pass the budget on time, and we want to start printing bills because we've had members around for a while, and if we start printing tonight, we're not going to be voting until this weekend. So we want to get that clock running. The other issues that we've been talking about, we'll continue to talk about. If we reach resolution and we're here and we're working on the budget, we can get the bills passed during the budget. If we don't reach resolution, we still have a couple of months until June.
What about the proposing of the down speeding tickets? I'm sorry, can you explain the design of the tax rebate, why you went with a check instead of building it right into the tax code? How much it's going to cost? Why you set the age parameters? Why you restricted it to people with children? What's the thinking on? What's the logic behind it?
Well, it was a collective effort. Senator Skelos might be in a better position to speak about some of the features because, or the speaker. The concept was twofold. One, a business tax cut, because it's about generating jobs, it's about stimulating the economy. So we have a business tax cut, which fully phased in is about $300 million, targeting small business, job creation, and then middle-class tax relief, because the middle class in this state has been squeezed for a very long time. They're under tremendous pressure, especially families with middle-class families who are trying to raise children, trying to put children through college and pay the expenses. Last year, we did a PIT reduction, and this year, they will be getting a $350 credit for the family to put money in their hands, which we believe they're going to spend right here in the state of New York. Senator Skelos, do you want to comment?
No, I agree. I think it's critically important to send middle-income families a message that we hear them, we understand them, and we're going to do what we can to make their fiscal lives and their personal lives that way a lot easier. So I think it's totally appropriate, the approach we're taking with business tax cuts. We reached a consensus on the minimum wage that I think is fair, will not be destructive to job creation. In fact, I believe the way it's structured especially with the credit that employers will receive for hiring teenagers, will actually improve teenage employment. And as we know, with teenagers, it's about 20% are unemployed, and with minority teenagers, over 30%. So I think we have struck a balance between the operation of government, but also tax cuts, job creation, and protecting our middle-income families.
Senator, excuse me one second. Senator Klein, would you like to comment on the?
Yeah, no, I think what the governor said makes an awful lot of sense. Again, anytime we can put more money back in the pockets of hardworking New Yorkers, that's something that's important. And with everything going up, like groceries and daycare, I think that $350 check is going to go a long way, in addition to keeping the largest tax cuts in 60 years in place for middle-class families, is going to go a long way towards helping them through these difficult economic times.
Excuse me one second, Bill. Speaker Silver?
Did as far as families and the income range, and notice that it's one $350 check no matter what. People have with children daycare expenses, child care expenses, clothing expenses, and we're recognizing that. We're trying to help them. You might ask, why is the $40,000 worker getting the same rebate as the $250,000 taxpayer? And the answer is very simple. The percentage of help is greater lower down the income ladder. And we're doing this in a progressive way in order to help people who need the help the most.
What does that tag on that tax cut?
About $350 million for the middle class.
Why is it cut off at 40,000? Lower.
Well, I'm sorry, Tom?
The price tag on the check, the actual,
$350.
no, price tag.
$350 million.
Is that all next year, or is that?
Next year.
all backward?
And why didn't you decide to go a little lower, help out even lower earning families, 30,000, 25,000?
That's basically the amount that are paying taxes to the state of New York. It's basically the starting amount. Is that right? With children.
1, 2, 3-year-olds and like 18 to 22, that just experience it's maybe the most expensive period in the life of a child. Any reason why those people are being cut out?
No particular reason.
Two-part question. Is the red light?
You only get one part, Ken. You know the rules. You can come back again for seconds, however.
Is the speed cameras in there, and also is the yeshiva busing or the private school busing?
I don't believe yeshiva busing or speed cameras are in there.
One more on the tax cut package, $650 million then for the businesses and the middle class.
Phased in, yes.
Governor, on millionaire's tax, business proponents are saying they expected it would end at the end of 2014, and that's what they were planning for. In the past, as a candidate, and when you took office, you said that extending the tax would be a new tax. You say that now, and if not, why not? And is that not hypocritical?
Yeah, Eric, this is the state of New York charges a number of taxes, right? So-called millionaire's tax, personal income tax, number of taxes. In 14-15, the tax rates charged by the state go down. So I'm pleased and proud to say we have a budget that cuts taxes in the state of New York. Your point is, well, some taxes go up, yes, and others go down. And the net is they go down. That's why it's a tax cut. Well, why don't all the taxes go down? Because you can't bring down all the taxes. Well, then how do you decide what taxes to bring down? You bring down those taxes that you think are going to actually stimulate the economy, cutting business taxes, which will help job growth, et cetera. By the way, some of the people on the top end of the income surcharge will be owners or partners in the businesses who are getting the tax cut. But that's important, because you can't say, well, some taxes go up, therefore it was a tax increase. No, some taxes go up, some taxes go down. The relevant question was, well, the net number is what? And the net number next year is a tax cut.
I apologize if I missed this earlier, but did you address the 18A surcharge? Is that something?
It's being phased out in what we call the business tax cut.
And how long would that phase out take?
Do we remember 3 years?
3 years.
3 years, it phases down.
Phases down in
3 years.
3 years.
Phases out.
Phases out in 4.
It's $650 million in tax relief. How much does the PIT bring in? I thought it was $1.9 billion on a full calendar year for the 2011 rates, all of the rates.
500 million is already built into that cut.
You can
Is
answer,
it
please.
500 million?
Yeah, there's already, as part of it, there was a middle income tax cut that would expire without that surcharge. So people making, I believe it's 40 to 300,000, their taxes would go up if we didn't renew this schedule. That reduction is worth about $500 million, independent of anything we talked about here today.
But how much is the top rate extension worth? How much does that generate? Maybe Bob knows that.
But that is not an issue, and I think the folks in the governor made clear that this was a 14-15 piece. The value of the income tax net in that 14-15 is $500 million. The value of this tax cut package, as the governor just said in 14-15, is in excess of $500 million. Before you start talking about the rest of the tax cut pieces, you're into the 15-16 and 16-17 fiscal years, and other budgets will come out before that.
But Bob, it's the 14-15, you say it's net 500 million, but the 14-15 is only getting 3 months of the higher rates, am I correct?
That's correct.
So it's 500, what is it worth on an annual basis?
When fully phased in.
No, 3. Correct. We're only in.
So adding 3 months of those rates, the current rates, gives you a net of 500 million. What is it on an annualized basis?
The net on an annualized basis is about $2 billion, but again, the point I would make is you have another budget in which to deal with that next set of issues.
What Bob is saying is this is we did a budget for 2 years. We did this current year, 13-14, and 14-15. In 14-15, it's worth $500 million. What it is in the out years, and what's the budget in the out years, we didn't do a budget in the out years. This is a 2-year budget. That budget will be done by the next governor, which I hope would be me, by the way, but that's when that budget will be done. We've just done the 2-year budget.
Governor, what would you say to business groups who say that extending the surcharge could encourage high earners to leave the state and would kind of go against what you've tried to do in terms of changing New York's reputation as a high tax state?
I would say, which frankly your story didn't say, the taxes went down. Taxes 14-15 will go down. So if they're asking, well, what is the direction of the taxes in New York, or should I stick with New York, or taxes going up or taxes going down, I would say taxes are going down.
Specifically for high earners, though.
I would say for high earners, the taxes under Governor Cuomo and Senator Skelos and Senator Klein and Speaker Silver, their taxes have only gone down. Their tax rate has only gone down.
I think it's
The
important.
tax rate, excuse me one second,
Excuse me.
their tax rate went up initially under Governor Patterson, what year, 2008, 9?
That was Larry's fault.
2009, Larry Schwartz, but we forgive and forget, 2009, so if they were going to go away, if they were going to leave, Tom, I think they would have left in 2009 when the rate went up, and since then, the rate has only gone down.
I think it's also important to note, if I may, Governor, that by what we're doing, we're also able to continue the elimination of the MTA payroll tax on about 85% of the small businesses. That is also mandate relief for our schools, for our libraries, by doing the reduction in 18A, the utility tax, that's mandate relief for our localities, for not-for-profits. So we are reducing taxes, and we'll also have significant mandate relief in this budget.
But on 18A, saying you're gonna phase it out over 3 years. Why would the utilities believe that when it was supposed to be phased out this year and you're not doing it?
We started. We started phasing it out.
But it was supposed to disappear this year, so why would they think that in 3 years, maybe the budget situation is where you say, all right, we're gonna keep it in existence a little bit longer?
Well, look, but that question can always be asked. How do they know what you're going to do next year? They don't.
How much is being phased out?
How do they know what's going to be done by, they don't. I'm sorry.
How much of 18A is being phased out in this budget year?
Do we know?
Putting it in the box. We're working it out.
It'll be phased out it's out over 3 or over 4?
3.
3. It's out over 3 years, and we're figuring out the rate of phase.
Is it possible that the actual benefit of the phase out will start in 14-15 as opposed to this first year in the budget?
Yes.
So they might say no benefit starting this year.
Starting this fiscal year. Do we know that? It's going to start next year, 14, 15.
What sort of agreement has been reached on the pension smoothing proposal? You mentioned that the comptroller and the TRS have been involved in some of the discussions on that.
It's similar to the proposal we put forward. I think it's with some variation, basically the same concept that we put forward.
What's the variation? Is it scaling back, is it expanding it?
Do you know, Bob, Larry?
Well, I think what it is to take into account concerns that TRS had, the teachers' retirement system, and the, ERS system, the state retirement system, that we minimize the best we could the risks to the fund at the same time that we were providing localities an option to get stable relief over time and benefits in the first 3 to 4 years.
How do you do that?
If you want to have an actuarial discussion about how that's done, we established rates that we think are actuarially sound, and we have a methodology for how those rates scale up over time so that they provide benefits to local governments in the early years, and like the governor's program that was proposed in the budget, that those benefits kind of flatten out over time, and over time the system remains whole. The employers get a relatively stable rate over time, and they have savings in the early years of the plan, which was the goal of the executive budget proposal.
It hasn't changed from what you proposed.
It changed, the numbers changed in terms of the phase-ins and how those would apply, but the principles were roughly the same.
On the minimum wage, has there been any changes over the last day to what we all reported in terms of no indexing, no, so nothing else, it's straight 4 years?
Thanks, everybody. You have an income between 40 and 300,000 children, one child or multiple children between 4 and 19 years old, you will get a one-time check for $350 next year, or is that for 2
Correct.
years?
That's correct.
Just one.
Correct, 1 year.
What about the IDA reforms that have been discussed? Is that part of this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
3 years.
3 years, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir, I gave you the wrong information. It is for 3 years. Yes.
Yeah.
Minimum age for children? There is no minimum age? A live child, no age limit. There is no minimum age?
I'm fine.
Maximum age up to 18. Emancipation.
We want to include you, Eric.
Does minimum wage include tip wage workers?
We're still working on that.
We're working on that.
IDA reform, is that part of this agreement?
IDA reform is part of the agreement.
Is there any chance and possibility, any talks going on in the next several days, that any of these other issues that have not been closed down, such as marijuana decriminalization, Will those be addressed in the next couple of days and voted on in addition to the budget?
We will continue to discuss the issues, the other issues, which we've been discussing. Stop and frisk marijuana, bath salts, et cetera, possibility of a gun chapter. We'll continue to discuss those issues. If we reach an agreement, again, as we mentioned last time, the budget is a good opportunity to resolve as many issues as possible. Everybody's here, everybody's working, they're in the sort of can-do action mode. So we like to take advantage of that action mode. Not that the legislature isn't always in an action mode, by the way, but they're especially in a hyper-action mode these next few days. So we want to take advantage of that if we can. If we don't have an agreement, obviously we won't, and we will keep working until June.
Don't we need a deal on the outstanding issues on the outstanding budget issues by tomorrow if you're going to pass it over the weekend?
Yes, if it was going to be in the budget, in a budget bill. Now, you could have an agreement on an issue that is not going to be in a budget bill, right? So you could print a separate bill.
Would you give a message to the SSC for some of those separate bills?
I don't anticipate any at this time.
Governor, in lieu of the $240 million are there any new revenue streams for the city that were not previously proposed in the budget?
No, not to replace the 240. The 240 was, well, as we've discussed many times, the entire education budget was modified, changed from my proposal pursuant to negotiations done primarily in the legislature. But those changes were made across the board. Well, we don't even have a final run yet, so we couldn't tell you. Well, let's get the final run.
New York City will have an increased aid over last year.
New York City will have an increased aid over last year. New York City will also have $240 million less than they would have had they gotten their evaluation done on time, as the law prescribed and as the law will continue to prescribe. Yes, Mr. Fink?
I got it.
Okay.
And one final point.
27th time is a charm, right? Yes, we did. Just a bunch.
Was your proposal to
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fink had a question.
the $9 minimum wage, when it goes to $9, is that 2016 January?
That is the end of 2015, January 1, 2016.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.